So let's say we want to find out what a typical data analysis student is like using the median. We have these three questions. Have you ever been in a physical fight? How afraid are you of being victimized? And how many times have you been stopped by the police? One of these questions we can't find the median for. And if you think back to the last slide, the median can only be found for ordinal, interval, or ratio level variables. In other words, variables that have responses that can be put in order. So based on this, we're going to say we can only find the median for the victimization question and the number of times stopped by the police question. So now I'm just going to pull up the variables for which we can find a median here. And the first one is fear of crime. So again, this shows the frequency table of responses. You can find the median position for this variable by taking your total, or n, which is 46, adding 1 and dividing by 2. If you do that, you get a value of 23.5. What this means is that if you were to list out all these responses in order from least to most, so your 6 very afraids, your 9 somewhat afraids, your 16 neither afraid nor unafraids, your 13 somewhat unafraids, and your 2 very afraids, all of those in order from least to most, and then count out to your median position, which in this case would be positions 23 and 24, the values that you found at those positions would be equal to your median. And I'm not going to show you that here or go through how to find the median for the frequency table, as I mentioned, but just trust me that it works this way. So if we find our median for this data, it's going to give us a value of neither afraid nor unafraid. So in looking at this, you should interpret this as meaning that half of the values in your data set are lower than neither afraid nor unafraid, and half of the values in the data set are higher than neither afraid nor unafraid. It's the value that splits the distribution in half. So that's another way of thinking about a typical student in this class. Half of all students are more afraid than neither afraid nor unafraid, and half of all students are less afraid than neither afraid nor unafraid. We can do the same things for the number of times someone has been stopped by police in the last 3 years. Here you could find the median position by adding 1 to your total number of observations, which is 45, and dividing by 2. This would give you a median position of 23. Again, what this means is that if you were to list out all these different values in order, so your 10 zeros, your 12 ones, your 14 twos, your 6 threes, and then your 4, your 6, and your 8, you list all those out in order, then you count out to the 23rd one, and that's going to be your median. In this case, the median is 2 stops. So at the very middle of that distribution is 2 stops. Again, another way of thinking about this is saying that half the class has been stopped 2 or less times, and half the class has been stopped 2 or more times, because 2 is in that middle position there. It splits the distribution in half. So it's another way of thinking about what a typical student is like in this class. All right, this brings us to our final measure of central tendency, which is the one that you tend to see the most often in research and really everywhere else. This is your mean, also known as your average. The mean can be found only for numerical data, so interval or ratio level data. This means that if you're working with a nominal or ordinal variable, you can't find a mean, and you're going to want to use either the mode or median instead, depending on what kind of data you have. So here's how to find the mean. The first step is to add up all the different observations that you have in your data set. So this is why we need to have interval or ratio level data. You need to be able to do arithmetic with it in order to add up the observations. The second step is to divide by the total number of observations. And we're going to do that using something called the mean formula. And to go through this, I'm going to jump back over to the document camera one more time.